couple of days ago, I was lucky enough to chat to singing superstar Sumi Jo. Beautiful voice and a heck of a nice lady too. She's performing with the Hong Kong Philharmonic tonight and tomorrow in a real mixed bag of lyric, coloratura, soprano stuff. And, of course, the orchestra features in some bits and pieces as well. One of the numbers that's being performed is from Handel's Sampson, Let the Bright Seraphim. And, of course, that features a very pearly trumpet solo. That's going to be provided by the orchestra's principal trumpet, Josh McClure, who joins me now. How are you?
Hi, Phil.
This is a real sort of mixed bag, this gig, for sure, isn't it?
Well, absolutely. It's a bunch of different things that really highlight how great Sumi's musicianship and her voice are. And I'm lucky enough to get to stand up front with her on her first song tonight. Well,
the thing that was fascinating about Josh's work is that, as well as being the principal trumpet in the orchestra and being a soloist in his own right, he's also a DJ and a music producer, and the list goes on. Do you reckon it's really important these days to be Mr. Versatile in one's life?
Well, I think that we really have no idea what the world is going to look like in 20 years, so I think it's good to not put all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting instrument, too, to take as a solo instrument, because I'm scratching my head here. We hear a lot of stuff in Baroque and previous to Baroque music. It seems like the trumpet's such a great instrument, but for a lot of years it just didn't feature as a soloist and out the front of the orchestra's solo instrument. Give me a bit of a history line.
Well, something happened in the classical period. During the Baroque period, Bach and Handel and those composers wrote extensively for the trumpet. It was the natural trumpet. It was before the invention of the valves.
Right.
So you could only play in one scale, basically, but the players back then were quite good, and they were able, even without valves, to negotiate some very tricky and very impressive things that actually are quite a challenge to modern players, even with valves.
Yeah.
But something happened in the classical period. Mozart, Beethoven, Brahms, Schubert, Mendelssohn, those kinds of composers didn't use the trumpet that way. They used it as a rhythm instrument. And so the trumpet section is more like first and second or second and third timpani. And in that period, the trumpets typically work as rhythmic reinforcement of whatever else is going in the orchestra.
Yeah, let's just chuck it in the sort of latter days. There's some fantastic trumpet concertos and sonatas and all sorts of stuff, some great repertoire, right? Why do you think composers with such genius as the fellows you've just talked about didn't exploit it more?
Well, Haydn wrote a trumpet concerto.
Right.
And that was for the keyed trumpet, which was a very new invention at the time.
Okay.
And then there are some letters from Mozart mentioning his trumpet concerto that he was writing. Mm-hmm. However, that concerto does not survive today, so we don't have it, which is a real shame.
Really? Anything else that stands to mind? I mean, there's one that people play from Hummel, right?
There's Hummel, but from the classical area, that's about it. I mean, we like to take transcriptions, and take other music from other great instruments and transcribe it for the trumpet. That opens up the whole range of repertoire. And I'm, for example, working on a solo CD right now.
We're going to hear some in a sec.
Yes,
cool. Yeah.
It's got a lot of things that were written originally for voice, and also some things that were written for violin. A couple pieces, violin solos that have been transcribed for trumpet.
All right, let's try and piece this together a little bit. Now, coming from the States, you guys didn't have a brass band. I know it's a different family, but a brass band tradition there. Yeah. So did the trumpet in Europe start kicking back in perhaps in the 1800s, partly because of the cornet, the brass band thing?
Well, yeah, and actually I think maybe it started in France.
Okay.
And so you look at a lot of music like Berlioz in that era, and there's two trumpets and two cornets. And the trumpets play the regular, boring 1/5 rhythm section, and the cornets have interesting chromatic lines.
Now, just explain this to us, because they are from a different family. So the cornet you see in brass bands is like a squished up trumpet, but it's not a trumpet, right?
It's virtually the same design, it's the same length, but a trumpet, the tube stays the same diameter all the way around the valves until it starts to open up into the bell. The cornet is constantly expanding. And what that means is there's a little bit less in the way of sharp corners inside of the airflow of the cornet, and so it has a more round, mellow sound.
Is it actually a horn family?
We're all sort of the same family as the horn.
It gets a bit vague, doesn't it? Yeah.
But it's played exactly like the trumpets, it plays the same key, and in fact, many trumpet players begin on cornet. For example, Phil Smith from England is the principal trumpet player of the New York Philharmonic. And he got his start in the brass bands as well because his father is English.
Right. Well, what they tended to do, as Josh just said, they take some flashy violin pieces or whatever and transcribe them, write them up for another instrument. And, these days we're even doing stuff like tuba, doing all these virtuoso pieces. Amazing, too. I'd like to just demonstrate this with a little bit of the Carnival of Venice, which features on your album. Tell me what you want to about the new record.
Well, the Carnival of Venice was written by Herbert L. Clark, who was one of the great cornet soloists of the USA, and around the turn of the 20th century, they were some of the biggest entertainers in the country. They would take their own bands that were named after them and take them around the country and play concerts, and so they were very virtuosic. That was really the beginning of the American great.
Where did they get it from, though? I mean,
I think they got it from violinists, because there were a lot of people that came over from Europe in the mid-1800s that brought that classical tradition.
Okay.
As an interesting personal note, my grandfather was a bass player for many, many years, and he played on the road with an American brass cornet soloist named Bohumir Kryl, who was originally from the Czech Republic. And so my grandfather had great stories about crossing the Mississippi River 15 times in one day, playing gigs all the way up and down.
How amazing. How amazing. And that's obviously where you got it from. Or is there anybody else in your family who was more musical or equally as musical?
My father was also a jazz bassist and a bluegrass fiddle player. My whole family plays music. My little brother is a aspiring clarinet player who actually just played in a master class in Virginia for our principal clarinetist, Andy Simon, who just happened to be giving a master class there.
You win some, you lose some.
Actually, that master class was set up by my mother, so I guess it wasn't an accident.
Let's hear a little bit of the Carnival of Venice, played by Joshua McClure. I'm going to cut it in halfway through when you start to sort of get going a little bit. Let's check this out, shall we? Beautiful sound there of Joshua McClure on the trumpet. I'll tell you one thing you bring with you from the old days, and that's nice wah, 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 nice vibrato. Now, musicians are very divided about that, aren't they? When you play certain instruments, you can't do wobble. What's your thought?
Well, for me, the vibrato is a sort of a natural thing that happens.
It does, though. It does, doesn't it, when people sing?
And it happens naturally when people sing. I've started to try to learn how to sing recently, and it's really been great for my trumpet playing as well. But in my opinion, the vibrato really helps open up. One of the big problems we have as trumpet players is trying too hard. We try too hard. We've been told when we were young that it's really difficult. And so we use way too much strength, and it actually gets in our way. And so what the vibrato is a way to relax all of those muscles. It's as if I grabbed your arm and shook your arm and said, relax your shoulder. It's much easier if you're shaking a little bit.
That makes a lot of sense. I guess you get a kick out of teaching as well, do you?
Of course, yes. Yeah. I teach a little bit at the APA.
Do you think it's important? It's not everybody's cup of tea, but do you think it's important to have part of your job as being a teacher so you can pay it forward and gets you thinking too?
Of course. I really enjoy trying to save people a lot of agony and suffering that I went through trying to figure out so many things over the last 25 years.
And parents don't always know, and nor should they. You know, nobody's going to blame them. But if you're a parent who's not musical, loads of people here have kids who learn instruments, you're not going to know if your kid is being taught badly, are you? Necessarily.
I think that's a possibility, Phil.
Yeah.
I think that's a possibility. And one of the things I'm actually the most interested in right now is some sort of higher tech application of what we know about how to practice.
Tell us more, because this is, you know, you were always told, go and practice. Go into your room and practice when you were a little kid. Well, I'm here now, so what do I do? How do I practice?
Well, the thing is that learning is a physical thing. You have to physically create structures in your brain that, for whatever skill you're trying to learn. And the only way to build that is with repetition. And your brain does not know when you're practicing what is the difference between what you did right and what you did wrong. All it knows is what you did. So my philosophy is keep it as simple as you need to keep your accuracy rate at 95% or higher. So I basically try to sound it good all the time, and if it's too hard for me to sound good, I go slower. I take out notes. I take out the rhythm, and I just practice the notes, or I just practice one thing at a time.
So you'll say, this time it's for rhythm.
Yes.
This time it's for
sound,
tone, or intonation.
The first thing I practice for is sound. And so when I have a new piece that I'm learning, I play each note by itself, not connected to any other note.
It's like surgery, isn't it?
And make every note have a great sound, if it's a 16th note or if it's a whole note. And I play every one. And if I get it wrong, then I use the key of learning, which is repetition. So I then go into my toolbox of fixes. I find the fix for the sound of that note, and then once I get the note sounding good, I play it 10 times in a row with that good sound.
Yeah.
Then I continue to the next note.
Yeah. I'll never forget somebody saying to me, wow, Charlie Parker was so good. Why was he so good? Because he practiced his scales, which he probably did.
I practice my scales every day, and I practice them in quarter notes very slowly.
Yeah. It takes time, but it's worth it, isn't it?
It's, you know, I think practice is not even quite the right word. I think it's more like training. And you just have to just do things right over and over again so much that it becomes automatic habit.
And second nature.
And when your habit is good, then your habit will kick in when you need it, and it's impossible to make a mistake.
I've often wondered about this, you know, particularly for people, as I say, with small children, let's assuming some talent. They're like, well, what do I do to get better? Natural talent alone doesn't just kick it, right?
Well, in my opinion, natural talent almost does not exist.
Okay.
I think that what we think of somebody as really talented is someone who maybe was just a little bit better when they were 12, when they first started, or whatever age they first started. They were 5% better than the people around them. Mm-hmm. And as a result, their teachers encouraged them, their parents congratulated them, their friends complimented them, and that then encourages them to work harder, and then over a period of 20 years, that 5% turns into 10%, turns into 100%, turns into a virtuoso.
With 5 minutes left, I dare ask you, what was your theory about Mozart's genius?
Mozart studied something like 8,000 hours with his father before the age of 9.
Yeah, he was a real stage daddy, wasn't he?
Absolutely, and that's what I mean about prodigies. Prodigies get this reputation for having this natural talent. It's not that. It's just that they did the work earlier than other people.
That makes such a lot of sense. Really, really interesting indeed. Tonight, I'd like you to tell us a bit about what you're going to be performing with the orchestra and Sumi Jo. Very well-known piece.
Let the Bright Seraphim from Sampson by Handel. Mm-hmm. It's actually my first time performing this piece, so I'm quite excited.
Fun. Yeah.
And I'm very excited to be playing with Sumi. She always sings first, and then the trumpet responds. The soprano sings, and the trumpet responds. The story is that is that she's beseeching the seraphim, some sort of angel, to play to celebrate Samson's funeral. It's right before the end of Sampson. And so she sings, and then I play, and then she sings a middle section by herself, and then we go back and we do the whole thing again. And then she's going to be adding some extra ornaments and some things, you know, sort of improvisatory ornaments. And so it's my job to have 1 second to listen to it and then try to play back what she did.
Fun. Cheeky boy handle. Anyway, fantastic. Before we go, I'd like to play a little bit of a completely different project of yours. I'm going to give you your CD now. Pick me a track and explain what we've got.
Okay.
This is him as a DJ. Let's
listen to Sad, Sad City.
Which number have we got?
Track number 5.
Okay, and explain what we're going to hear whilst I crank it up.
Well, this is a song called Sad, Sad City, originally by a band called Ghostland Observatory from Austin, Texas. Austin, Texas is the live music capital of America, and I spent a summer playing in the dirty blues bars with a band there. And so we got to like this song, and then I make my own music, electronic music, and other kinds of music. And so this is a track that I made that we used to play with the band, but an electronic version. And Brilliant. It's got a very nice singer, Kate Priestley, on it.
Well, here's a man who's obviously very happy with his professional life and his personal life, living in Hong Kong. I take it you've got no plans to move anywhere.
No way.
Good on you. Have a fantastic couple of gigs. Brilliant. Lovely to meet you. Joshua McClure.
Thanks, Phil.